We're going to be looking at graphs today. We'll be looking at two different types of graphs, a line graph and a column graph. All graphs are used to show information. They're really good at being able to compare different information or see how things change. The line graph shows us how something changes over a period of time, whereas a column graph has a bunch of different categories, and we can see how different categories compare with others. When looking at graphs, it's really important to see a few key things. All graphs should have a heading or a title which tells us what the graph is about. It will also have some other titles like this here, which says temperature in degrees Celsius. That's telling us that the y-axis, which is always the axis, the line which is going up and down, what's on it? So this one is temperature in degrees Celsius. So here where it says 0 is 0 degrees Celsius. Here we have 2 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees, and inversely we have -2 and -4 down the y-axis. But the x-axis, which goes along this way, is time. So you can see that this graph begins at 4 p.m. and ends at 10 p.m. Now, the line which you can see going down in this case begins at 4 degrees at 4 p.m. Whereas at 5 p.m. we're not at 4 degrees anymore, we've gone down to 2 degrees. And we can see that this is at 5 p.m. because it lines up with this one here. If then we look at 7 p.m., which is over here, we go down to the line, and then we trace it back to the y-axis, we can see that at 7 p.m. the temperature is -1. As the night goes on, the temperature gets colder and colder. We have two questions below. The first asks us, what was the lowest temperature recorded on the graph? Now here is 4 degrees up here, and down here is -4. Now we know that -4 is less than, or is lower, so we're going to look towards this end of the graph and see where the line is. Now our graph, the line on the line graph, gets down to here at the lowest point. It's right down here, which is at 10 p.m. So at 10 p.m. the temperature is at, now we can trace it over here, it's in between -2 and -4, which means that the lowest temperature is at -3, and that happens at 10 p.m. The second question says, how far did the temperature drop between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m.? Firstly, we need to have a look at the temperature at 4 p.m. So if I find 4 p.m., which is over here, 4 p.m., and then I need to find the temperature, I can look right up until I find the line, and it is at 4 degrees Celsius. And then I need to look at 10 p.m., so I need to find 10 p.m. on my time axis, and then find my line, which is down here, which is at -3. Now this is asking me to find how much did it go down. It started up here at 4, and over the time period it came all the way down to -3, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees lower. So from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. the temperature dropped by a total of 7 degrees. The first thing that we need to do when we're looking at a graph is take a look at the titles. And you can see that the title for this graph is favorite animal. So that that means that we will be shown information in this graph about a group of people's favourite animal. Now, if we look at the y-axis, which goes up and down, this information here, these numbers, will tell us the amount of votes. On the x-axis, we have the animal type. So these are different types of animals, and the higher that it goes up, the more votes which it received. It's also worth looking at this part here. We can see that the orange represents a tiger, blue is a dolphin, pink is a mouse, green is an elk, and brown is a bear. So straight away we can look at this and see that an elk wasn't very popular, but a bear was popular. So let's have a look at the questions. What was the most popular animal and how many votes did it get? Well, we can straight away see by looking for the tallest column here that the bear, the brown column, was the most popular. And we can check how many votes it got by tracing it back until we get to the y-axis, and the answer is 11. Next question, how many people voted for elk and tiger all together? Well, first I need to know what is the elk and what is the tiger. I can use my key up here. The elk is green and the tiger is orange. So an elk, trace it back to the y-axis, had 5 votes, and a tiger, trace it back to the y-axis, had 8 votes. So 5 plus 8 equals 13. So the total amount of votes for elk and tiger was 13 people. Lots of questions and information in Chapter 3 of the Alpha Book. Please check out pages 132 and 133 for any more information.